Now, we're going to do a special segment. This is the first time I've had a live guest in studio since I've been doing Saturday nights. I'm really happy to have with me, and it goes right with the theme we've been talking about. We have Aladdin Ullah and Gabriel Vega Weissman. Aladdin has a new play, or a play that he's producing again, and it's a very timely play called Dishwasher Dreams. It is dealing a lot with multi-generational immigrant experience in America. I'll let you introduce a little bit about the play, and we can weave it in with some of the themes that we've been talking about.
Sure. Yeah, I started this developing this play at the Public Theater when I was a member at the Emerging Writers Group, and what I wanted to do was kind of bridge the gap between first generation and second generation. And when I was an actor out in Hollywood, I felt I was part of this new minstrel show where I was constantly auditioning for terrorists, cab drivers, and I felt that I was totally disconnected from these characters. And all I was doing when I would play those characters is channel my father. I would just do an impression of my father, and I would just do his voice, "In the name of Allah, we will desecrate your nation." So I just felt like this was a new minstrel show. And it was almost like an epiphany. I was in Hollywood, and I realized that if I'm, dealing with all of these issues being, in Hollywood, in a foreign land to me, I couldn't even imagine what it was like to be an immigrant in the early 1940s as a teenager, as my dad was, trying to navigate America. So I felt a deeper appreciation for my father. So I wrote this play, with this idea of dreams is the reason that people come to America. I was listening to your callers, and yes, capitalism and, it does fuel a lot of the reasons why immigrants come here. But ultimately, it's this dream of a better life, dream of better opportunities. And the notion that a dishwasher can actually dream of owning his own restaurant is a radical idea.
Who is the dishwasher?
It was my dad, but also his generation of men who I knew as my uncles, who just went around and worked as laborers. They were line cooks, waiters. These men didn't speak the language. They practiced a different religion, and yet they believed that this was a place where you were welcomed to dream. And so when I was a child, I felt no connection to that.
Where's your family from?
We grew up in the only Muslim Bangladeshi family in Spanish Harlem. So I always say it felt like being the only Amish guy at a rap concert. So I felt different, but I felt like I had no connection to my parents and that generation. And it's ironic that today, in the world of such xenophobia of Trump, that we, the children of these immigrants, I feel like we've gotten closer to them. Because when you hear how people are talking about immigrants, you go, "Hey, wait a minute, you're talking about my parents." And so, yeah, I listen to hip hop. I'm into basketball, and I don't necessarily feel like I am identical to my parents' experience. But what I want to do with the show, Dishwasher Dreams, is show that no matter how much you pretend you're not connected to your immigrant parents, you actually do have that umbilical cord to your parents. So I wanted to create a show where people can kind of see themselves in saying that, yeah, we are Americanized, but there is a connection to our parents, whether or not we want to acknowledge it. So the dreams of a dishwasher is the reason that I'm here. The dreams of a person in a village is the reason that I'm here. So many people, where they're coming from Mexico, Cuba, or wherever in the third world, they're coming here ultimately for a dream of a better life.
So, Gabriel, you were telling me earlier, your family is from a different part of the world, but there's a lot of universality in some of the stories. You're the director. Why don't you talk about how you see this piece?
Yeah, so my mother immigrated to this country from Cuba in 1960. My father's from Brooklyn. And one of the things that we've been talking about since the beginning of rehearsals is this quote of Denzel Washington's. It's something to the effect of the universal stems from the specific.
From the specific comes the universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I first read this play, I read this scene where Aladdin's talking about teaching his mother English and math with Sesame Street. It's like, "Ma, listen to Cookie Monster, listen to Big Bird. They're going to show you how to learn English." And it hit me so hard. I was in North Carolina visiting a friend. I'm reading this script. And it reminded me of my mother coming to this country and telling me over the years that she would listen to It's a Bird, It's a Man, It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman. Mm-hmm. And that was her introduction to English. And these tools that we used when we came here. And that's sort of been what we've been talking about as we share this. It's a New York story that we're sharing with all of New York City. And how do we make it something that's really specific and unique, and something that is total universal and shareable.
And one of the things we wanted to focus on is that I felt, just me personally, I watch other shows and films about identity, and it's and they live happily ever after. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to show the audience that America's dream is actually, it can be interpreted as a hustle, because many times these laborers are being exploited. They're not getting the salary that they deserve, and it's an unjust living that their existence is. So, the thing is, we as children, we have it good because, we go to school and whatnot. So, we never think about, well, if their plan A didn't work, what was their plan B? What was their plan C? And you realize that these people who you think, they're just immigrants, they're fresh off the boat, they're not hip, they're not cool, they're not revolutionary as I am. You don't realize that their experience in the 40s and 50s, that they paid their dues, and what they did was just as revolutionary as radical. And the way that they dealt with racism and discrimination, how they navigated that is a history that needs to be told, and we kind of have amnesia when it comes to acknowledging those generations before us.
Well, one thing that I saw in your play in its earlier production is, and this is how it struck me, and you can tell me, no, you totally missed the point, Sansara, or not, but that it seemed like part of the journey that the play goes on is that there's a lot about the culture and the experience of your parents and where they're from that growing up in America you have no appreciation for. As a child, you're more raised by the larger culture than you are by your own home, although everybody's raised by both. And then through the play, what struck me, or a thing that struck me, was that you were getting a new perspective. There's a maturing going on where you start to see your parents through the eyes. Everybody goes through that, where at a certain point they see their parents through adult eyes and they appreciate the full humanity of them. Yeah. But there's an extra layer, being that you're discovering more about the country they came from and what they went through.
Well, a lot of it is identity, because I always feel like, I'm into hip hop. I watch the Knicks. I love the Yankees. I'm down with being a quintessential New Yorker. I feel like I had no allegiance to my family who was in Bangladesh or life in the village. And I always joke, I'm an agnostic atheist. I question my disbelief. So I've never had any interest in religion. So, when I look at my parents, I don't identify with the things that they identify with. So I felt like an outsider in that I didn't believe that I was part of that culture. But it was only until I was older and I had that experience leaving New York and trying to exist in a world where I wanted to pursue my dreams. And I realized, because Hollywood is racist and did discriminate, that I had to pretty much have a plan B. Mm-hmm. And so when it was an epiphany and I realized that I could not deal with what was thrown to me in Hollywood, I came back to New York and looked at my parents through different eyes, looked at their experience through different eyes. And now, ironically, because the whole world is kind of having a wake-up call in the fact that they're putting children in detention centers, it's how the world perceives immigrants. So how I looked at my parents was one way, but now how America sees immigrants is really disturbing, because they're seeing them less as human. Mm-hmm. And that makes me wonder, what's going on here. They're drinking this Kool-Aid that's not the truth. So I feel with my play, ultimately, it's about telling the truth. And the truth is that these people are human. And sometimes the people who are saying these xenophobic things, they forget that these people who are coming here are human. They're leaving a world that is not in the best condition. So they're coming here not to join terrorist groups or join gangs. They're just here trying to pay the bills and survive.
Well, so the play, for everybody listening, is called Dishwasher Dreams. And it's opening at the Castillo Theater on October 26th.
October 26th to November 18th.
Yeah. And so I'm really happy to say to everybody listening, not only are we going to hear an excerpt, Aladdin's going to perform a little excerpt from the play here now, but we also have tickets. And we have two sets of tickets, and you can...
come any night you want.
Any night you want. Thank you. From the director's lips. Any night you want. You pick the night between October 26th and November 18th to go and see this play, live performance in New York.
And I also want to say we have tabla. We have one of the world's greatest tabla players, Avi Sharma. Mm-hmm. He's also playing tablas along with me in the show. So
and tell us what tablas are. Tell everybody.
Tablas are an Indian drum. And it has a really hollow sound. It's a beautiful instrument. So a lot of the monologues that I'm performing, it's with Avi performing alongside us. It's an incredible show. We've worked really hard on it. I think it's the best solo show in the country.
All right. And tabla is like a whole different rhythmic pattern than...
Yeah, it has more of a hollow sound. It's that doom sound, so it has a really funky percussion sound.
There's a melodic quality to it too.
Yeah,
so
it's
there
really
is like
different.
it really is a score through our piece.
And I feel like
on this music.
we're really covering new ground because we're like the first play that's really using tablas in American theater.
So if you call and make a pledge to this station, and I'm going to give you the number, if you give $60 to this station, you can give more, it'd be better. But if you give $60 and you let us know you want tickets any night of this play, we will give you 2 tickets. And I ask you to give a call right now at 516-620-3602. That's 516-620-3602. You can get tickets. You can support this station. And I guess I would like to ask you, Aladdin, if you want to share a little bit. I know you brought an excerpt. It's a one-man show. It's actually a two-man show if you count Abi on tabla.
Yeah.
We just gave him the big ups, and we should. But
yeah, so basically it's about this section right here is when I was about 11 years old. I really got into hip-hop. And this is kind of me talking about that moment. And it's called Daisy's Meet Jim Crow.
Yeah, you're calling to be on the air, right?
During the 1980s, when I was around 11, I started hanging out with a crew. We were the rebels, the hooligans, the outcasts of Spanish Harlem. We'd hang out in Times Square, which is a little different today than it was back then. Oh, today there's Starbucks, Disney, and Dwayne Reed. Back then it was pimps, prostitutes, and peep shows. On 7th Avenue, there was a theater that used to show Bruce Lee films for $2. We go every Saturday. We'd see all of them. Enter the Dragon, Return the Dragon, Bitch Slap the Dragon, etc., etc. Now, our crew tagged graffiti. Graffiti possessed the badass cubism of Picasso along with the ferociousness of Jackson Pollock's splatter crashing on canvas, only we didn't have any canvas. Our canvas was the streets and subways in New York City. We didn't care about Soho art galleries or getting our art to the Whitney or the MoMA or the Metropolitan Museum of Safe Art for the Elite. Our art was free and it was for everybody. Because for a long time, nobody really gave a damn about how people lived past 96th Street. Well, graffiti gave us a voice and we were gonna be heard. We weren't robbing anybody. It was a whole lot of fun up until the moment I got arrested for vandalism. My father came to bail me out of jail. Aladdin, when I come to this country, I never thought that I would have to pick up my son in jail for drawing on walls. Haramzat for this garbage? It's not garbage, Pop. It's graffiti. I tagged the whole walls and subways because I let the whole world know who I am through this art you call garbage. Besides, what you know? You just some fresh off the boat Uncle Tom dishwasher. Oh, that is what you think of your father, huh? You think I don't know what it is like because I was a dishwasher. Let me tell you something. Listen to me when I'm talking to you. Long time ago, before you was born, I go down south to see your uncle, Chacha Loti. If anyone from Bangladesh come to America, we visit them. If they go to Alaska, we go. So your uncle come, I take bus, we go restaurant, we sit down, I say, waitress, I would like a cheeseburger. Make sure you put American, that is my favorite. I'm sorry, sugar, we don't serve your kind. You gonna have to take this and go. Benchut kutia bacha. What do you mean you don't serve my kind? I am hungry. Is that not your kind? I'm sorry, sugar, we don't serve y'all on account of Jim Crow. Well, who is Jim Crow? Let me speak to this crow. Tell him I am very, very hungry. I need to speak to Jim Crow. I want to speak to Jim Crow right now. Excuse me, boys. What seems to be the problem? Oh, you must be Jim Crow. Hello, my name is Habib. We just want to eat Mr. Crow. Stop calling me Crow. I'm the sheriff. I ain't Jim Crow. Jim Crow is a law that states there ain't no colors allowed in this here establishment. That means no spics, engines, or niggers. Now get her going. But, sir, I will not leave until you serve me. If a man is hungry, he should have the right to eat. This is America. And this is the South. And you niggers are going to jail. So, Aladdin, I know exactly what you are doing. How do you say this word? Defiant? But at least my defiance stands for something. What are you doing? Putting your signature on a wall? But what do I know, right? Huh? I am just a dishwasher.
Okay, so that was from Dishwasher Dreams. That's Aladdin here in studio at WBAI 99.5 FM. Now, you heard it, but you didn't see. He's actually gesturing. He's acting it out. You got to see it live. You got to see the whole production. Am I right?
It's a good show.
Go ahead.
The thing about New York is I feel like we've hit on something timely. To be perfectly honest, we're not here to, dump on any other theater, but a lot of theaters, I think, are scared to confront the truth. And what I've tried to do, my mission is to try to tell the truth. And we're doing this documentary called Bengali Harlem. I feel like people are scared to tell the truth about the immigrants. When the immigrants come to America, they're experiencing a discrimination that, like, my father's generation, they've kept quiet about. And I think today what's going on is that it's polarized, the way immigrants are treated. They've always been treated a particular way. They just have kept it quiet. And I think America doesn't really want to acknowledge the truth. And I think American theater doesn't really want to acknowledge the truth that comes from a place of authenticity. It's like, selling $1,000 tickets is great. And if you want to talk about, founding fathers who were slave masters, that's cool. But I feel like we need to have an agenda to talk about immigrants who have really paved the way for a new generation. And then their experience is just as significant as any founding father.
Well, I do feel like a lot of the narrative, and I often don't like that word because people like to think, everybody has their own story, as opposed to there are some things that are actually true. Mm-hmm. Objective facts matter. Mm-hmm. But there is a narrative that the Democrats often use, or a lot of liberal people use to counter Trump, that says, but we're a nation of immigrants. When actually this is a nation that was built through brutal exploitation of immigrants.
Slavery and genocide.
Slavery and genocide of the native people and of Africans shipped over in slave chains, but also the Chinese immigrants who built the railroads, the wave upon wave of immigrants who have been brutally exploited, and unless they are of European background, they don't get assimilated in. Only a handful. So I think go ahead.
But what my point is like, what breaks my heart about New York is American theater was from New York. Mm-hmm. New York had the heart and the courage to talk about the truth. When the writers that were blacklisted in McCarthy hearings, the only place that they could actually get work was New York theater. Mm-hmm. And I feel like New York theater in many ways has abandoned that truth. It's all about making money and, how do we get our subscription-based audience to come see us? That's great. I understand you have to pay the rent, but there's a lot of stories that should be told. And I think we're losing a lot of American stories about these immigrants who have these wonderful stories, and they're just getting lost.
I think that for me, the amazing thing about this play is that it bridges your father's experience as an immigrant and your experience as an American citizen, a natural-born American citizen, mm-hmm. and how we talk about the American dream in the play and in rehearsal a lot. But we, the American dream comes with fine print. The American dream is a contract. Yeah. And your father, when he wants to open up a restaurant, he gets so far, he opens the restaurant, but with the help of the mob that he's bound to.
Loan sharks.
Loan sharks. He's bound to, he's working, and they're making all the money.
It's the American hustle, not the American dream. You got to navigate that.
And then when you get at the end of the play, the play is framed around an audition that you have in Hollywood for a big movie director. And this is the dream. He's made it to Paramount Studios. He's making big, he's auditioning for big movies. But the roles are limiting. If you want that, then here's what you have to pay. This is the fine print. That's the catch. So it is definitely an immigrant story, but it's also a story about us, about you, and how what's the same, what's different.
Yeah, I think the story that we're trying to tell here is a story of my father, who experienced this, and for a long time I didn't acknowledge his experience. I was like, it's insignificant. And I feel like, most of the first generation who are here, if they would hear their parents' stories, it'd be amazing. It'd just be mind-blowing, like with the stuff that they had to endure so that we could have a better life. That sometimes gets forgotten in the immigrant story. That's why I feel the immigrant story is amazing.
Well, let me ask you another question, because I know that you did comedy for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of humor in your show. But I did want to ask, why did you feel that theater was the right form to tell this story?
Well, about 15 years ago, I was kind of, back home in New York trying to figure out what to do. And I saw Ruben Santiago do Lackawanna Blues. And immediately I thought about Richard Pryor, because Ruben did something that was so like Richard Pryor. He brought these characters that everyone had forgotten, the way Richard Pryor's people in Peoria that he grew up with, gangsters, pimps. But what Ruben did is he brought such a humanity to these people who everyone had forgotten. And he played this little boy who was just around all of these people who his mama gave residency at this boarding house. and he had a musician on that was playing music, and I knew right there in that public theater where I saw it, I had to do that. And when I saw Ruben do that, I just felt like this is the way to do a show. This is the way to create characters. This is the way to tell a story. And I wanted to tell the story of my father connected to me. I just didn't know how to do it at the time. So Ruben was a mentor, but Lackawanna Blues really was the catalyst, the inspiration for me to go this direction, which is long form storytelling with music and working with a director to kind of help shape it. So it is comedy, but it's really sort of like what I always say is whatever Ruben did at Lackawanna Blues, that's what we're chasing. Because I felt what Ruben did in Lackawanna Blues was magic. And that's what inspired me to kind of do this style of writing and style of performing.
Gabriel, do you want to add anything on any of that?
Yeah, it's. I think that doing it as a play allows you to change tone, in a way that you can't in comedy. I think that in comedy we have an expectation of something being delivered to us, a punchline every X number of seconds.
Yeah.
Whereas here we have some of that, but then we also know intellectually that we're going to have spans of storytelling that are more narrative.
Yeah, and I keep on going back to Ruben because he had a lot of hilarious moments in his play, but the fact that the audience would wait and they were patient and he can go deeper, it's almost like you were putting on a helmet and going to this ride, and it was a ride of humanity, and that's the direction I wanted to go because I had been there, done that with jokes, comedy. I was at a place in my career where I wanted to go somewhere deeper, and when I saw Ruben Santiago do that with his characters, I felt, wow, this is the way to go. So I wanted to write in a style that was funny, but just a lot deeper, more thought-provoking, and just a lot more social and political. And I really feel like I have a mission to write stories about immigrants and children of immigrants, because I feel those stories are they're not really being told authentically.
So if you call, everybody out there, I know you're intrigued, if you call the number 516-620-3602, 516-620-3602, we have 2 sets of tickets. If you give $60 to this station, to our radio station, being on the air, bringing you things that you can't get on the mainstream media, the bourgeois ruling class media, you can maybe find in the crevices of the internet, but it needs to be broadcast to a big audience. That requires you stepping up and supporting. And if you give $60, you have a fantastic night out. You get 2 tickets. You get to see this play live in the theater, and you support this station. You become a friend of WBAI buddy. And the number is 516-620-3602. It's a live event. So it's different than, that's part of the theater too. You're there with everybody.
There is nothing in the world like live performance. You can go Netflix, Hulu, that's cool, but there's nothing like the magic of live performance. And we take you there on that journey. You also have music, but we take you on a ride. So I really believe that live performance is unlike anything else in the world.
One of the things in the excerpt that you just were performing, but it's also, as I recall, a theme that gets worked in different angles, which I really appreciated in the narrative, is the experience, how much the immigrant experience is shaped by the oppression of black people and the racism, which a lot of people don't understand when they first come. And frankly, immigrants, a lot of what's fostered in this country is a division where immigrants are taught, just like American society is taught, that black people are lazy, that they're out of work because of this and that. And there's a big attempt to pit immigrants in the black community against each other. And I thought it was interesting, even your father going and who's Jim Crow? And he's being treated like a black person in the South. And he has no idea what this system is. And then later, you're exploring the racism that is actually embedded within the Bangladeshi community.
Yeah, well, what I tried to do in this play, there's the A story, which is my father trying to pursue his dream as well as mine, but I throw sort of like hints about racism throughout. The racism that South Asians and Indians, for lack of a better word, when they come to America, it's that colonialism. And so when I went back to visit my relatives in Bangladesh, the biggest cream product in Bangladesh, India, Africa, the West Indies is Fair and Lovely. It's the bleaching cream. Everyone knows Sammy Sosa has deformed his face. to look white. So, I found it fascinating that, the people who are the darkest want to look the lightest, because it's this thing of trying to just scrub the blackness away. And that mentality is something that, unfortunately, a lot of the immigrants who are from those countries still believe in, that black is bad. They use the word kala, and that it's this association with anything that's black. That's learned behavior. What I tried to do in the play is make points about how this is something that is passed on through generation. And the good thing about growing up for me in Harlem is I grew around some of the toughest black and Puerto Rican people who were like, black is beautiful. I don't know where you're drinking that Kool-Aid. So it was great to kind of be in an environment in the 70s and 80s where I was around, hip hop, graffiti artists, break dancers who had afros who said black is beautiful. But unfortunately, in some of these countries, colonialism is so dominant that they believe that black is not beautiful. And that's something that is learned behavior. And once again, as an artist, I want to really explore that. I want to talk about that. I want to make fun of it, and I want to address it. Mm-hmm. And so in the play Dishwasher Dreams, that's why I think it's one of the best solo plays out there, because we address a lot of things. We use humor, we use music, and it's live performance. You share it with everyone. Can't get that on Netflix.
That's true. That's true. We were the whole theme, and I know you listened to some of the show before you guys came on. We've been talking about capitalism and immigration, and in particular, a lot of the demonization of the Trump era, the really genocidal ethnic cleansing that's begun, and his demonization of this caravan. And I just wonder, I know that the play, you wrote it before the Trump era, but I wonder if there's chords in it that strike you differently, if there's things that...
Yeah, well, it's changed a little since you last saw it. So we address it towards the end, and it's basically, I'm summarizing. The point that I'm making to the audience, to everyone, is that the reason that I'm here is because of the decisions of a man in a village who didn't speak the language, who practiced a different religion, who believed that there was a place where you can go to be welcomed and pursue your dreams. I wonder today, right now, if people still believe in that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the question that we're asking the audience. I want to leave the audience thinking, well, it's not just my country, it's your country too. So when you support Trump, what are you supporting? Are you supporting that xenophobia? I was telling Gabe, when I did stand-up comedy, this is a true story. I was at a comedy club in the South, and this dude with a swastika, his group was heckling me. I took out $100 and I said, I bet you I know more about the Texas Rangers than you do. And I gave him the lineup from the 1970s. I know everything about the Texas Rangers. I know about Nolan Ryan. I know about Jim Sundberg. And they bought me a beer afterwards. This dude with a swastika said, I never met a Muslim like you. Because he didn't see me as human. He saw me as this other, this terrorist. And I'm like, yo, my man, I'm from New York. I listen to hip hop. I listen to Run DMC. I play ball. I play baseball, and I'm just as American as you are. But they don't see that. And I think, unfortunately, we live in a time where people look at immigrants like we're freaks. They don't see us as human. And what I believe in my heart, maybe it's naive, that arts can really provoke people to look out of a window that they're not necessarily looking at. So hopefully when you come see my play at Castillo Theater, that people will see that, I'm trying to bring a humanity to immigrants that maybe they may have seen before. And so that's my mission, is to bring that to the audience so they can see that immigrants are human beings. They're just as American as anyone out there.
See, I'm 98% with you on that. But I would make this distinction about, yes, immigrants are just as American, but actually, why is American, and I think you'd agree with me when I pose it, why is American what anybody has to be to have their humanity recognized? And to me,
definitely.
It's so...
it's like the joke, white people are immigrants too, just ask a Native American.
Yeah, yeah. It is, and it's like the song we started the show with. We are all illegal.
We're all illegal.
We are all illegal. Mm-hmm. And borders, just like you said, the racism is a taught system. Borders are artificial.
You know, when you speak, what's wild? When you go down south,
yeah,
and you speak to the natives down there, I'm talking about the native. If you roll and hang out with the Native Americans and the Mexicans there, the first thing they say, if you have a drink, there's no such thing as a border. Where is it visible? They're laughing at it because that's something that let's keep it real. That's something that white people came up with. There's no such thing as borders. Mm-hmm. It's there's no such thing as a line. That's, as a comedian, it's hilarious. That's a made up, made up BS. There's no borders. There's no lines.
Well, there's no innate border, but unfortunately, we live in a world where there are borders, and they're
people,
militarized, and they determine people's life and death. So,
because when you drink that Kool-Aid, when you drink that capitalist, corrupt Kool-Aid, you start drinking that.
Okay, so listen up. We are reaching the end of our time together. Gabe, do you have anything else you want to add besides reminding people that they could get tickets?
No, you should come see Dishwasher Dreams because it is live theater, and you should come see Aladdin Ullah's athletic performance in this play, playing like
athletic.
15 characters and himself, and he's the most special one of them all. So please come see it.
Okay, and you can get your free tickets if you make a donation to WBAI. Call 516-620-3602, 516-620-3602. We thank you for listening. This has been Live Radio with Sunsara Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Aladdin. Thank you, everybody who called in. And I hope you pledge to support the station and have a great Saturday night. And thank you, James Ursay, for engineering.